who has a new book to help guide you with these steps to grasp your confidence and own your power. I love that.
Look around the room. You'll see that you're not so alone after all, and that unconfidence could look like any of us. Maybe your whole life you have been told that the best wins, but I'm telling you right now that the best known will win. Hello, thank you so much for tuning in to another amazing episode of Grasp Confidence Podcast, where we empower you to become the best version of yourself through personal development and leadership strategies that enhance confidence. I like to interview a lot of amazing people on this show. You guys know that. You are my listeners, right? I don't ever stop interviewing amazing, inspirational people. But today I'm joined by my friend Zsuzsa in Hungary as we discuss entrepreneurship, starting an empire, building a team, and what it takes to gain the confidence to go after your wildest dreams. Welcome to the show. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, Tara. It's very nice to be here. I am Zsuzsa Kecsma, and I'm co-founder of Antavo, which is a technology company.
I love that. Co-founder of a technology company. Tell us a little bit about that. I know you guys are, what you do is really different. It's building customer loyalty. But I would be really interested to understand why this? How did you get into customer loyalty, and what was that drive? What did that look like?
Yes. So it's a technology company. We build a software that helps brands and retailers to run loyalty programs. So we are the technology behind loyalty programs, because loyalty programs require all these logic, like you buy something and then you get points, or you refer a friend and you get this reward, and you are all in all these different tiers. And it's really nice if it works in another country too, or it works with the other brand of the big company, and so on. So there is this whole science in loyalty programs. And our company is 100 people, and we have very, very nice customers. We're so proud of them. Like we have KFC, or we have Benefit Cosmetics, or we have very big fashion companies that they're so big that they're so sensitive about us talking about them. We have big luxury fashion marketplaces, but even you can imagine like 10 million farmers using our platform. So it's millions of people with the best brands who are customers of like hotels like Scandic Hotel or Flying Tiger, which is a great brand in Europe. So our 100 people serve these amazing brands and retailers all over the world.
I love that. Amazing. And you've won awards, and this is something I want to really emphasize, because we're talking to very much an expert, right? Tell us a little bit about the award you recently won.
Yeah, it's the one I personally won recently is the biggest achievement of my career. And I think anyone who works in customer loyalty, this is the go-to. This is the best that they can achieve. So I have to say it's at the peak of my career. It will not be better than that, because like this is the thing. This is Personality of the Year at the International Loyalty Awards. And this is the awards for our space for customer loyalty. And I've become Personality of the Year. So it's a very, very big thing for me. And it's a big thing, of course, for our company too, that the co-founder of this company won this big award. And what is really special for me, that there could be like, 100,000 people out there who could have gotten this. Like, I don't know, who from Ogilvy or the head of loyalty at Starbucks or Tesco or Walmart or, those people who are so smart that their work is really impacting a lot of people. And they decided that this award comes to me as a co-founder of a technology company, which is transforming the market. And I also reach so many people. We do a lot around education. I'm very vocal about loyalty programs. I post about it every single day on LinkedIn. We produce the biggest report of our industry. So I learned, I still don't know who the jury was because they will not tell me, but I learned that this is the reason why they decided to give this award to me in a very fancy award ceremony in Dubai. So everyone was so glammed up, and then the big announcement from the previous year's winner saying, Zsuzsa Kecmar, Personality of the Year. It was a very big night. I'm so proud of this, not only of myself, but so proud of my team too.
What did that feel like? So, this is the award, as you describe it, for your industry. And like you said, I mean, people, big names really could have easily gotten this, but they didn't. I'm curious, like, when you first heard I assume was there a nomination process where it was between you and a couple other people?
They could have picked anyone, and there's a nomination too, but I learned it around 3 weeks before the event. Wow. And my colleague basically just wrote me on Slack saying that, hi Zsuzsa, I heard from the organizers of the award that you are the Personality of the Year, so you won this. Like, please take a picture of your passport because we will need it. And I said, like, what? This is how you're telling me. And I needed to lie down on the floor because I thought I will faint. And then adrenaline kicked in. So I basically started walking first just to the back of the garden and back and back. But then I needed to get out of the house. I went and talked with my husband, who's my co-founder, and he is the CEO of our organization. And then I jumped up and down and I walked even more. And then I started walking and started making calls to share it with our board members and closest colleagues, telling everyone that it's top secret. And I walked for an hour. I was on the phone for an hour. This is how it felt. It was hard to really imagine that this is happening to me. And for the longest time, I was also afraid that, like, wow, will they come to their senses and then call me that it was a huge mistake? So, imposter syndrome kicked in. But then I was able to believe that, yes, that's me. And I will be prepared to be on stage and to receive the award. And I deserve it.
I love that. So you hit on something really, really key right there. Imposter syndrome, which, this podcast is about personal development and gaining confidence and how to gain confidence, right? That's what our listeners are really intrigued by. And, it's interesting. Imposter syndrome comes in all shapes and sizes and forms and really impacts anybody. And you're proof of that. Ultimately, when we think of somebody who would be suffering from imposter syndrome, we don't think of somebody who's qualified. We think of somebody who's not qualified, but the reality is kind of the opposite way. Sometimes the more qualified we are, the more those imposter syndrome moments can kick in, and it can get the best out of us, can it?
Yes, it can. And I think this is why it's so powerful that young people start things, because they don't feel it yet. They don't know what they don't know. I think in order for you to feel that imposter syndrome, you will need to know what are the things that you don't know, what are the things that with you are lacking. But with young people, they know that they just want it, that they want to go for it. They don't think twice. And it was me, actually, when we founded the company. I wrote the thesis, my dissertation in my university education around the business plan of the company that we are running today. It was a different version of a product. It was long ago, and it was like 4 of us starting it and then building it step by step. But I didn't feel imposter syndrome back then because I didn't know it's a thing. I didn't know what I didn't know.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think young people rarely suffer from this. I'm no expert in the field. It's just like a feeling that I have. And yeah, like once you are more qualified and then know more about your own limitations, know more about others, maybe this is how you start experiencing it. What about you, Tara, actually? As a very accomplished agency leader, public speaker, how do you find this topic?
I think you're exactly right on. And I actually talk about this in my book. And I believe that we're all born confident. And your point kind of, brought that to light. When we're young, we don't suffer from imposter syndrome. We just go after things because maybe nobody's told us we couldn't before, or what we've probably also never told ourselves we couldn't before. I think that's the main thing, right? And then as we go through life and the more we learn, the actual less we realize we know. And then we think and we compare. See, that also doesn't happen as much in youth, especially if we're talking about, the very young. There's no such thing as comparison. But the older we get and we go through university and life, the more we start to compare and contrast ourselves. And ultimately, it can lead to us diminishing our own self-worth. And that's a really slippery slope because one thought leads to an action, leads to an outcome. And you start to do this enough times and it starts to become a reality, a way of life where we're living that imposter syndrome because we didn't chase opportunities because we're afraid or some other limiting belief may have held us back a little bit. So with that being said, you're very successful now. You've got all of these amazing things happening. You're leading a team of 100. You just won the biggest award in your industry. My question to you is, was it always this way?
It is never this way before. Yep. I think we are having our best year, our best quarter. We are the best as we are right now as professionals, as a team. I'm happy to report that we are doing well. And before we were on the way of getting here, the industry also helped because in our industry, in the area of customer retention, there is this newfound attention to existing customers. It's happening since COVID, since everyone was really protective of their customers immediately after lockdowns started. And there was a big wave of digital transformation, introducing new systems, so you can actually talk to the customers that you already have. And from this frustration, this industry had a whole renaissance. And then companies launched programs fast. And now they are in the wave of scaling and replatforming it, which is really helpful for us, our company, the people we are working with, all the service providers, agencies, consultants, system integrators we are working with. And also, not only the industry developed and the macro environment developed, but also we developed as a company, because it is a whole journey that we experienced back from 2012, when we founded a company for Hungarian people at Old Street in London. From that 4 people, how we evolved to this 100 people that we are today. Sometimes I think that it should have been faster. We are not even that smart, but then I also remind myself that most companies don't make it to this stage. And it's just very nice that we kept working on the company and then believing that we can do it.
It's so key. It's that belief. And I find a lot of days it's that faith that can keep me going, right? Because I understand what it's like. It's not easy. And sometimes it's a lonely journey on top where, we have all of these things that we're constantly thinking about in our minds, and it's hard to turn off sometimes. And we have so much to do. But it doesn't have to be that way, right? We can hire a team of people that are really good and fit in the gaps of where we're not. And I think that's a humbling journey as well for a CEO and a founder, is to recognize our own weaknesses and how we can bring on a team that helps complement those weaknesses, and ultimately, so we have a really nice working unit. What are your thoughts about that kind of team synergy?
Well, there's a saying that if you are the smartest person in the room, that it's not nice, because then it means that you surrounded yourself with people who are not smarter than you. And I feel in the past years, I constantly fear that everything in this room is smarter than I, which is this humbling feeling that you are just talking about. Yeah. Like how we can hire people who are complementing our weaknesses, how we can hire people who are setting us to grow as an organization. Yeah, it's really a humbling experience, just as you described it.
Yeah. It's interesting, right? It's leadership at its finest. When you think about, this journey, I want to go back a little bit before you started the company, because, a lot of people, as you said, entrepreneurship's not easy, and most companies don't get to the point where you guys are at right now. So a lot of people that are listening, maybe it's a lot of leaders, maybe there's people that are thinking of starting up a company or just recently started up a company. I'd like for you to take us back to that point in your journey before you started. And I know you mentioned you wrote your dissertation for it in college, but then what was that gap between writing that dissertation, that business plan, and then actual execution of it? What did that look like?
I think it's really important that, let me put it in a different way, because I don't know about others' experience, but I can tell about my experience. So our company was born out of two things. The first is frustration, and the second is, what is that you can lose? So the first one, my partners were frustrated because when they were running an agency, if you run a web agency, that was the era when there's a lot of e-commerce stores created, a lot of digitalization. It was 2011 and 12, basically. They've run an agency where they created websites and shops. And their frustration was that they sold to the customer, but the customer happily left, and didn't come back for a long time. So this is agency work sometimes. They didn't have that retainer element. They just needed to sell again. They knew that there needs to be a change. And because we wanted to build a sustainable business, that was the frustration. And then the second is, what is that you can lose? We thought, well, what is it we can lose? Not much, because if we fail, then we fail. Us as founders didn't have families back then. We didn't have children. We didn't have big mortgages. We just had confidence that, yeah, we can do this. And then if we fail, then we fail. That's that. And I think it's a nice exercise too, if you're thinking of launching your own business. Is there a very big frustration that you want to solve? Is there a situation that you want to change? Because it will give you the direction to go. It will give you the passion if you're able to formalize this. Like there's a problem in your industry, or there is like a specific way of how people around you are working now, and you know that you can change that. Or there's this frustration that you do something that you don't want to do, and you want to do it in a different way. So that's one thing about taking fuel from your frustration. And the other is, what is it you can really lose? If you calculate, if you write it down, these are the things that I can lose if I start my business. Like I lose my day job because I'm working on the company, or I lose the half of my day job, or if I keep my day job, I lose my free time. Or what are the securities or the things that I like that I'm going to lose? Mm-hmm. If you are okay with this threat, this risk, or you are okay with losing your free time a bit, because we always lose something. If you're okay with this, then the combination of two is worth pursuing.
Wow. So go after it. That's what I'm kind of hearing, right? But do it with some strategy, folks, because we have to understand the frustration. And we hear this a lot in business, focus on the problems. What are the problems? What are the pain points of your target audience? What are their frustration levels? And I think when you lean into your strengths and you do it with confidence, and then you think about what that other person or business, what their frustrations are, what their problems are, and then how you can take those natural strengths that you have and bridge that gap for them so that their problems are lessened or non-existent. And when you do that, it creates a lot of loyalty because it creates results, because you're actively changing something that has been a level of frustration for them. That's a lot of wisdom in there. And honestly, when we talk about businesses failing, I feel like sometimes it's because they don't truly understand the level of frustration or the level of problems that their target audience actually and ultimately has. What do you think about that? Is that accurate?
I like to say that the 100% of businesses fail because their founders or owners are threatened by running out of money. And by running out of money, I mean because their sales is not great enough, the product is not great enough, they're not determined enough to cut costs, and they just stop doing it. And yes, so important is to know your customers' frustrations. We have two kinds of customers. One already has a loyalty program, and they have the budget, they have the people, and they have the pain, which is great because we can solve it. They either think it's clunky now, it's expensive to keep, they can't really change, or it's internally developed and it's just really, they started it 10 years ago. It's a code no one wants to touch. And they come and they want to use a specialist software, and we are able to solve that. And the others are who are launching a new program because they want to differentiate themselves from their competition. They want to use better marketing communications for their existing customers. They want to reward their customers for being customers. And here, the two reasons are slightly different. So we are thinking always like how we can help them. After all, we are helping them with the same thing, but it's different things that are important for them. And during sale, during any kind of communication, it's important to know that people want different things. And in order to help them, we need to speak their language.
I love that. That's a tenet of leadership for me. And it's something I speak about in one of my keynotes, is that everybody needs different things. So if we're talking about in a team environment, we have to understand as leaders that what this person needs is going to be different than what this person needs, and so forth, right? We all have different needs. And similarly with clients. And I think that's another important lesson in wisdom that we need to understand too, is to not assume, right? To not assume what someone else's needs are, what someone else, whether that be a person or business entity that we serve. There's a lot of wisdom in that because we can assume really easily, can't we?
Yeah. And this sometimes is the best thing to ask, like to simply ask, why have you done this? Even if it's just a simple message. Why didn't you come with us? Why did you choose a competitor? What is really the most important thing for you when selecting X? Or, yeah, these simple questions are so powerful. And, after all, businesses, relationship between people. And sometimes people can over idolize it, like business to business. But after all, it's relationship between people. And you can definitely ask these questions, even in a text message, asking questions or open-ended questions or interviews, or just simply honestly asking things you are curious about, because assuming things it can be dangerous, not like so dangerous as meeting a bear, but dangerous with your assumptions.
Yes, assumptions are very dangerous, right? And they don't allow for growth ultimately because they're not doing your business any favors. And I think you're right. The more we dig in with open-ended questions, the more powerful we actually become. Now, that's not easy because, again, human nature says ego can get in the way. And sometimes we don't want to hear what that other person, what their feedback is for us, right? Because it could be a hard pill to swallow. Do you know what I mean by that? But at the same time, in order for us to grow as a business, we have to understand what went on that was the problem so that we can fix it so it doesn't happen again, right? But that's not easy. That's easier said than done, right? It's not easy to understand and always ask those hard questions, right?
Yeah, and then I think it's a lot about asking the right question. It's really hard to say, give me feedback. Because if you say, give me feedback, for the other person, it's hard to answer. Like, okay, what? Like, yeah, things are fine. But asking specific questions, I think, really helps. And the questions that I used recently are like, please explain the thinking behind this. So I don't start with why, because that can be, even the word why can be threatening to some. I don't want them on their toes. I just want, please explain the thinking behind this. And the second is I'm using in an ideal word, how you would describe that, this, and that working. And then this ignites thinking. So I'm really getting my answer.
Wow, I love that. It's so powerful. It's such a big shift, right? And ultimately, it leads to more openness and responsiveness. I think that's really key and important. But as we're winding down the show, I would love to hear some words of wisdom for you as far as gaining the confidence to go after big dreams like this. Because again, a lot of people are, maybe they want to do something big, but they're not sure how. And this could be anything. It doesn't matter if it's applying for that big job, working for someone else, or starting your own business, working for yourself. How do you gain the confidence to do these big things? I would love to hear your perspective.
The confidence is just a means to an end, I think. Because what you really need to be determined about is that, do you want that or not? And I really take motivation from life being short, like kind of we all gonna die. And I know it sounds weird now, but that's the fact. We're all going to die, and life is short. And now I feel that I'm just using these big phrases, but it really helps me to put things into perspective. Like, how many years a person will live? What are the things that you will want to do? If you want to start a family, then you better start raising a family. If you want to start a business, then you better start doing that already, because life is short. And this really is a big driver for me. And I'm at the age of 36 now, and we have 3 children. And we always knew we wanted to have kids. The oldest is 9 already. I was relatively young in today's terms of having a child when I was 26. But we knew that we want this, but we also wanted business success. So I think it's nice if you know which are the things that you want to do, and put it into perspective of, now is a really good time to start. If you don't basically start dedicating most of your time to that big idea just yet, but if you cultivate it, if you think about it in the evening, if you are planning, if you're taking notes and planning action steps, like maybe next May will be the right time for me to take that big step, that is already starting. That is already basically part of the work.
Yeah. Take action now. And I think that's why action is a part of the GRASP method. Without action, ultimately, nothing will come to fruition. No matter what your dream is, I think any goal that we have in life is tangible and possible. It's up to the amount of action and faith we put into something, right? If we don't take action and we don't do it today, like you said, life is short. And ultimately, tomorrow is not promised, tomorrow is not guaranteed. But what is guaranteed is right now, this moment. And in order for us to seize the moment, we have to put in action so we can cultivate it, so it can grow, just like what you said. I love that. Well, what an enlightening episode. I know this has been such a great interview. I'm inspired. I'm going to take some more action right now. I love that. But thank you so much for the interview today. Any last words that you would have for us?
Well, I think the GRASP framework is a great framework. It has all the things to take action and what to think before and after that. Having action, basically the middle of the word, but starting with A. Thank you for doing this, running this show, writing your books, and speaking about these concepts. And thank you for having me too.
Oh, I love that. And what's the best place for us to find you and look you up?
It's LinkedIn, I think. I'm there every day, and it's an easy way to connect with me. It's Zsuzsa Kecsmár, which I know is now hard to write down, but I'm sure in the podcast title there will be somewhere my name. Please find me, DM me, and then let's connect. If you want to talk about entrepreneurship, or if you need a loyalty program, then we are the people for that.
This is it. This is the company to go to if you need a loyalty program. I love that. Well, thank you so much for being a wonderful guest today. And thank you for everyone who tuned in to this show. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review with your thoughts and connect with these amazing guests after the show and follow their work. Thank you so much, and we will catch you on the next episode. Take care.